Hello, my name is Max. I'm the Search and Rescue Manager at SOS Mediterranee. I started on lifeboats when I was 18 with the RNLI as a crew member. In September 2016, I started on Aquarius and I became a Deputy Search and Rescue Coordinator. I've managed 3 rescues where many people died due to the boat being broken when we showed up. In our conception of rescue, especially in Northern Europe where I was trained, people visualize rough weather, maybe a lighthouse, a couple of rocks and enormous waves breaking over this thing, and you're there to try to deal with that context. So your risks there are pretty specific. And then I saw this video of one of the first mass casualty rescue that was done by Aquarius, and they show up, it's completely how anyone in that scenario would think if they'd never seen one of these rescues go wrong, never dealt with, more than 20 people in the water at once, for example. So they go up and they try to take someone off the boat that was sinking. And that's a rational thing to do, but suddenly what we realized is 5 other people were holding on to him and they all slid in the water. So that's when we started realizing, okay, there's a unique approach here, that the risks we're dealing with was essentially offloading 9 smart cars of weight, so about between 120 and the most I've done on a rubber boat is 195. When they start to break apart, they become really unstable. And we also realized that there was some shipwrecks where everyone survived, and then there was other shipwrecks where a lot of people died. So I've done rescues of 2,000 people around us in rubber boats, and armed groups show up and start shooting, and you suddenly have 100 people in the water. It's like, how do you prioritize in that situation? And what I realized is you need to focus on the risk. So if the main risk in front of you is drowning, get them floating. And if that's throwing a life jacket at them and suddenly they're floating, you've kind of done the job there. You've stabilized the situation, you now have time. And if the main cause of death is crushing, which we saw in that rescue of, 22 people been crushed in the bottom of the boat. And I realized, okay, crushing is the other risk. So how are we going to deal with crushing? Obviously crowd control's principle there, because I saw these boats where people were this deep in water and they weren't crushing each other to death. So we started working with panic. And once we controlled panic, we started working about reducing weight on these sinking vessels. So not trying to get them to safety yet, but stabilizing by offloading people onto whitewater rafts, essentially. So I started thinking okay, I can write SOPs for what I know, but what is within my sphere of influence or control that I can give to people in training, including myself, to deal with situations that you don't necessarily have a defined answer for. The main focus of this training is to try to enable other people who are coming in to this arena to understand the concepts and understand the methodology and why that works, and be able to improve and get to a strong place in rescue faster than I did, and faster than any of my colleagues did who started at a similar time. And we also used our experience to develop a more nuanced and deep understanding of the interventions we deliver. For example, my last critical rescue, I was 2.5 miles from the mothership, the mother vessel. It was night. We had a cross swell blowing like we do normally in the Mediterranean, waves coming from every angle, and the boat was breaking apart, the vessel in distress. And in the meantime, one of our ribs had engine problems. So let me put you in my situation. I'm managing a team of a 6.8 meter rib, 2.5 miles from the nearest ship, alone in the dark, with more than 50 people in the water, like that. And when you think about capacity and ability to respond, you quickly understand that's a fairly desperate situation. And because of the way these end up turning out, is usually part of the boat starts to break, right? The first thing is the deck had cracked, which constricts the deck like that, like I said, reducing space available. But it also allows water ingress, which, as fuel is lighter than water, these big cans tend to float for some reason and tip over. So it fills the whole thing with fuel, mixing with the salt water. The main effect there is people get pretty high, basically. And that mixed with the panic of death and the fact that the boat suddenly was, it was just spewing people out into the sea. My main focus of this training is to allow people to face that situation with a structure and a concept behind them, because I didn't have that privilege when I started this. And I realized that was very scary. And I feel like the transmission of this information, why it's so important, is mainly to allow people not have to go through what a lot of us went through to reach the point in the professionalism we've gotten to. So it's about delivering a clear mental model of how to manage a situation where you're 2.5 miles away from a mothership in the dark with a bit of a swell and over 50 people in the water with no life jacket. And I think we've provided a fairly robust beginning for that.